My name is Thibault Emin in French, and I'm very, very happy to be here at the Fantasy Film Festival. I wish I could be here in real life, but I'm really happy I can make this interview. And I directed the film called Else.
The words you created were the end of the film, where everything merges, and where you have long passages of these words. They recall a little bit the images that artificial intelligence creates. Is were you inspired by it?
No, actually, we use artificial intelligence for the first images, the stills, the images of the first cases of the skin problems and people
Mhm.
infected. Um, but no, well, I must say I'm very, very curious about uh, people's reaction to these images of the end. Um, I'm not sure I want to tell the real story about where they come from, uh, because it can be really disappointing. But but they are actually not so new. I mean, they existed long before this really recent AI
Mhm.
stuff. Uh, um, so no, it's really about fractal technologies. It's a CGI involving fractals,
Mhm.
uh, and there is a random element in the way these images are made. Uh, I mean, the two artists that make them do not control everything. They create accidents, as far as I understand how they do. Um, so there is maybe what today we would call artificial intelligence involved. I'm not into computer enough to say that actually. Maybe, but it was generated before everything that is emerging these 2 last years. It's from before. It's really about fractal, which is another side of imagery. Yes, but the opening title sequence is generated with very very old software using artificial intelligence.
Mhm.
It is.
How is your relationship with artificial intelligence at the moment? Do you feel it as a threat or more like that it opens opportunities?
I'm not uh, educated enough about these concerns to really make a, a interesting answer about it. What I feel is first that I don't know enough to know if it should be scary or not, which
Mhm.
is extremely scary. I mean,
Mhm.
being unable to know if something should be scary, if you should be scared or not, is scary in itself. So, of course, I this is my best answer, I guess. But
Mhm.
the other thing is that it's extremely disturbing for me being being into science fiction since I was a child, and but I feel like I'm part of an old past world, uh, uh, being confronting to real artificial intelligence in real life, because I grew up and my mind developed uh, thinking about these issues in a world that was pre-AI. I mean, in a world where AI did not exist. We knew it would maybe exist in a distant future, but it was not there. And so I was, of course, one of the sci-fi fans that were maybe pro AI in films that I loved, like Blade Runner, Spielberg's artificial intelligence, and films that were, for me, pro other, as I would say before, because AI was one of the incarnations of otherness in sci-fi tropes, in sci-fi movies, like robots, aliens, or so AI was a figure of the alien, the other. So what was important for me and was, yes, humans falling in love with AIs and becoming friends with AIs and making children with AIs. I mean, I was a fan of even um, Her, the movie Her was,
Mhm.
for me, it's one of my favorite movies, but it was, I mean, we cannot look at these films the same way now that AI is here. And and uh, and I hated Terminator and even The Matrix because they were, for me, anti other, anti AI. They were like movies about fear of the but now we may feel that these movies were right. I mean, and it would be extremely disappointing on the intellectual level if it was the case. But yes, of course, AI seems scary. But
The title of the film, Else or Else or Else in French, where does it come from? Is it a name?
I was expecting what people would think. No, it's actually very, very simple. It's the English word, like something else,
Okay.
someone else. It doesn't exist in French, and it's not a name.
Okay.
Even is, I think maybe you will be the first one to answer me about that. It's a first name in German,
Yeah.
is it?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Mm.
But no. It's not in French, and uh, it's really. I think the problem is it doesn't make real sense in English when it's alone. The word else alone doesn't make sense, but in my head, uh, it was like an alternative to Alien, the
Mhm.
movie's Alien, the title Alien, which is a title I love, but it represents the fear, the fear of the other that I was talking about, and
Mhm.
that a
Mhm.
lot of sci-fi movies um, make us feel. And I want to do the opposite. I want to show that otherness can be uh, something else than scary.
Mhm.
So I was looking for a word that would express otherness, but showing uh, something that is not negative, like alien, and maybe more ambiguous, maybe more open. And that was, for me, what this word else expresses. And we don't have it in French, so that's why I choose this word, this English word. We don't have an equivalent in French. It's, for me, it's a little word that I find very poetic, but because I'm not English, obviously.
What can you bring, or what could you bring from your feature-length documentary to this fictional feature lengths? What did you learn during this process that you could apply to this one? Sorry.
Well, it was not a real feature documentary. It was like mid, I mean, 52 minutes. It's something, yes, well,
Mhm.
medium. Um, but it was the longest of my short films, and it brought a lot to else, and to my approach to fiction, because I was despaired as a young filmmaker, aspiring filmmaker, because I had the chance to do a lot of short films in film school, but I wanted to do sci-fi. But people didn't really like my sci-fi short films. I mean, especially in film school in Paris, everyone was really film d'auteur, author-minded, and I didn't fit, and they say, oh, they didn't like my sci-fi films. The only film I did that people liked was the documentary, and it changed the way that people looked at me. I mean, uh, comrades and people in my film school and teachers also. I mean, everyone looked at me so before that as a strange dude, little disgusting guy with strange ideas. No one really understood, and as if I didn't like human beings, and I was not interested in humans, but only in I don't know what. uh, until I made this documentary, which was because I was in total depression at the time I made this documentary. So I actually made it about the meaning of life because I couldn't find the meaning of life. And I made it about the loss of my mother, and I used the documentary form, which was an exercise imposed by the film school, to talk about my depression and about my loss and mourning. And it was the first film, I think, yes, absolutely. It was the first film where I managed to talk about my mother's death. Before that, I could not. Even in real life, I could not talk about it. um, and seeing people react to that um, was extremely important. And this taught me the importance of the autobiographical dimension in fiction. And because some film comrade, after seeing this documentary about me, very intimate depression and talking about my mom and stuff, he told me, man, you should one day make a science fiction film uh, that has this quality, that is talking about yourself the same way this documentary does. And when the day you achieve this, doing the two things in one movie, you will be there. Yeah, this is what you have to do. And I'm grateful for him to say that, because I really understood that, and that's what I tried to do years later with the feature fiction film. Um, it's yes, trying to this had to come through this documentary experience.
Do you recall the moment when you said, yes, now I'm ready to do a long feature?
No, I really don't work like. I mean, my mind doesn't function like that at all. I never think I'm ready, um, but I think imitation for me is the key to a lot of things in human life. So, I mean, this was the key for me to do short films and to do a feature film, imitation. So when I saw friends of mine doing a feature film, this was the way for me to think, if they can do it, there must be a way I can, maybe not being able to do my own feature film, but mimicking them, imitating them. This way I know I can imitate people. So this way I must be able to do it. This is how I process. But it's not totally ironical. It's really something I believe. I think we learn. It's true in every area. I mean, we learn by imitating, and in the art world, there is a bad connotation about imitation. We always think imitation is a bad thing. We must run away from it, fight it. I'm not so sure about it. Imitation is is the first step of every learning process in human life. So anyway, I wouldn't made a feature. I wouldn't want to make a feature film if other human beings hadn't done feature films before. So it's all about imitating people and so on. But after that, the process of having the film financed was so long and so erratic, and sometimes it fell apart, and I changed producers. I mean, so after that, it took so many years. It took 13 years actually. After some times, I felt more and more ready because, I mean, there were several attempts. So at the first attempt, we were next to shoot, really next to near to make the film in like 5 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And this time I was dead with anxiety. But after the project fell apart, and waiting years, rewriting, changing producers, and everything starts again with the same project, the same actors, different collaborators, and you live the same experience again. It helps for people like me, very anxious. It helps a lot, actually. Even if you lose years, you lose time. It helps with confidence because you feel more ready because you have already experienced it. So this was an element too.
What does that mean? Are you ready to do a next one, or was it so exhausting that you said, well, let's wait a bit?
Uh, this is a one question I really don't know. Well, with the AI thing, I do not know yet. And I'm very afraid of the answer. Just like with the
Mm.
AI, I don't know. The movie is not really finished yet. Actually, we are still
Mhm.
setting the last problems, and so yes, I'm exhausted on a deeper way than I would have ever imagined, and I wonder how people can do this all their life. I mean, how can Ridley Scott, or I don't know who, go on doing this like he's 90 years old? I have no idea, really. What the only thing that comforts me is when I read Tim Burton, his book, interviews book, saying that every time he does a movie, he wants to die. But afterwards, he managed to forget it and enough to make another film. And when I read that, I was so relieved. Okay, if Tim Burton wants to die every time, I mean, it's okay. It's I'm normal.
There were two things I wanted to ask. One thing is you will have your film with us, the Fantasy Film Fest, but you will also be on Toronto Film Festival. It's quite a big deal. What is your expectation? What would you like the audience reaction to be?
I'm really at the point now where I just hope people will be interested in it. I mean, this is really new for me. We had test screenings, but it was during the process of editing or sound editing, and so I never had any reaction from a viewer that was not part of making the film and so on. So and the film is not really finished at the day we speak. So really, first of all, you may be the first person talking to me that saw the film and didn't know about it before. So your questions make me feel like that you were interested enough by it to ask them to me, and so it's actually very extremely huge for me. So this is the step I'm I'm at. I mean, hoping that the people will be interested enough to get to and believe enough, buy enough the beginning of the story, and to keep interested until the end, and after that, of course, yes, I have many expectations and megalomaniac ambitions on the philosophical side with this movie, but this is for later. I mean, now I just hope people will get into it.
How close is the film also when it comes to the setting and how you decorated the setting?
Yes, you mean because it's a studio. It was all
Oh,
built
okay.
in a studio. Yes,
Okay.
um, it's all fake. There is
Mm.
no the only real place is the exterior. I don't know how you say that in English.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes, it was on location, as they say. The outside shots of the building where the character lives are
Mm.
the only location shots. All the inside shots are studio set that was all built by a team. Um, but yes, it was built after some some recollection of where I lived. Not accurately, precisely. It was a recreation, but yes, it's one of the autobiographical dimensions of the film. The thing is, uh, I grew up and lived always in the same apartment in
Mhm.
Paris with my mother and my brother. And when my mother died, my brother left, and I went on to live alone in the same place
Mhm.
for a long time until I was 30 years old, actually. So um, the movie is about this experience too, and it's about my relationship to this same apartment. I lived with all the stuff belonging to my mother that was still there, her bed, her and uh, what happens when an apartment becomes your family. And it's also I say that because it's also an answer to your first questions. Where does the movie comes from? I mean, it's about relating to a place, an apartment, uh, as an incarnation of people that no longer exist. So yes, it was the two rooms that are in the film, in the film's apartment. There is a room that is actually the character's own child room, the room he has been in since he was a child, and that's because that's why it has so many toys and childish elements. And at the same time, there is the other room, which is actually his dead mother's room, and which he kept in its old, like frozen in time, and full of memories, and this duality inside the same apartment was very important to me. And of course, yes, it comes directly from duality of the place where I used to live. I was kicked out eventually from it, but I lived there for 30 years, so it was a big part of my life. Yes.
Mhm. 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 About the soundtrack, if you could say a little bit more how you developed the soundtrack for the film.
I don't know if I must say it. I had higher, well, different expectations. Uh, I initially wanted the soundtrack to be more experimental and
Mhm.
to sound. I was dreaming for so many years to have someone build a music made of matter, made of objects, and so on. I didn't really we didn't succeed in doing it. but maybe there are some remains of this idea in some pieces. I don't know. I hope so. And so, but I say because it's really a part of the job. When you direct a film, you have to transform your ideas and make them sometimes simpler. It's a lot part of the job for me, and give up some of your ideas that are too complicated or too experimental, too abstract, or that simply don't work, and accept that someone else is going to come and do something different and maybe simpler, but that is the right thing to do.